Hello everyone, hope we're all good. Big shout out to KR Couriers and Transport Limited for all their support, and a big thank you to everyone who likes, shares, comments and subscribes. I love all the identification. I love the interaction that I've got with yourselves. You know, your views, your opinions, your thoughts. It means a lot to me. I've spoken a lot recently about, my addiction and, my experience in the prison system in the UK. The three top most dangerous scousers have shared my views and thoughts on them. And the feedback was positive, and some people had fond memories and some people didn't. Now, I've been to prison in the UK, and I wouldn't glamorise it. It's not about like glamorising prison. I know some people who set up podcasts mean well when they first start. They talk about their life experience and they come across really well, but it changes as they go along. The narrative changes. They become a little bit overconfident, a little bit complacent in the way they interact with their audience on YouTube. They become really aggressive and unpredictable, and it's quite like unattractive. I've noticed it. People who mean well, ends up just sabotaging everything that they set up to do in the first place. And that's not what I'm about. I'm about like being authentic, being real, staying humble, keep my feet on the ground. I'm not glamorising prison in any form. Now, once you've been to prison in the UK, you know what it's like. Your first time you go away, it's quite frightening, it's quite daunting. You get through it. You adapt or you die. You become a victim if you allow it. Now, for me, I spent years in and out of prisons in the UK, and then I went to Thailand, and I spent a long time in a prison in Thailand, and I come across a lot of deranged, crazy individuals. Now, there was a guy there, and he's called Alfred Satori. Now, Alfred Satori was AKA Dr. Death. Yeah, he was going around the world claiming that he had a cure for cancer, claiming that he could cure AIDS, and he'd be selling his products, to vulnerable people who believed in him, because he comes across quite academically. He can articulate himself. He's very, very clever. I think he's from Germany, Alfred. Now, I met Alfred in Chiang Mai prison. He must have been in his late 60s. He looked really dishevelled, hunched over, but he still had his marbles. He still, has everything intact. And he was fighting his case. He was married to a Thai bird. He'd been nicked in Thailand. He'd been arrested in the US a couple of times. He'd wiped out a few people. We talk about like Harold Shipman. He's a serial killer. He's killed a lot of people over here in the UK, for his own agenda. But this Alfred Satori has also done the same thing, but around the world. Especially in Thailand, where it was full of AIDS, and he was telling vulnerable families he could cure AIDS, and he was just killing them off. He was the subject of 60 Minutes in Australia. He's a proper black artist. Now, he actually believed in himself that, he had the cure. And he's very convincing, so you're sitting in his company, you think, fucking hell, is he right here? Is this all bullshit what they're saying on the telly and in the news articles that, they're still trying to find the cure, but he has one. But it was all about it all. It's all about money, innit? I don't know what happened to Alfred, to be honest, because I got shipped out to Chiang Mai to Bangkok, and he stayed there. We never really, we weren't keeping in touch anyway. Wasn't having him as my doctor, but he was one of the people I come across. And also I met there was an English guy, right? He called himself Jack. His name's Clive Fennison. Now, Clive, from London, he was involved in the stock exchange. He was quite quite intelligent. He could make a few quid, you know, in the business world. Me, I was just a scally grafter, come unstuck, ended up in prison, got chatting to this kid. Now Clive, I met him in the foreigners induction unit, and he used to just sit there all day playing young Burmese and Thai boys with cigarettes, and you know, because he was from England, I got speaking to him, and he said, "All right, mate, what are you in for?" He went, "Well, you fucking wouldn't believe it, mate, if I told you." I said, "I would, lad, tell me." So he began to tell me the story about, you know, he had this young lad as a friend, just a friend. Yeah, he was, 14, a young Burmese boy. In and out of his little apartments in Chiang Mai, quite regular. People got suspicious. You know, he was from a hill tribe. People called the police. You know, the boy confessed that, you know, he was having sexual interactions with Clive. Clive gets charged with this. I don't know what it was that he got charged with, but he ended up getting something like 4 years, nothing major, but he got a 4-year sentence, and he fought tooth and nail, you know, to get himself an acquittal. It never happened. He had to his sentence, and that was it. He believed he was innocent of the crime, but to be fair, his behaviour dictated a lot to be said, you know, because what I've seen of him in Chiang Mai, he was just really hanging around all these young Burmese boys and Thai kids, you know. You could see him smiling, giggling, and he was definitely like, you know, that was his cup of tea. Each to their own, not for me. I've spoke about Clive in this, Prozac Jack, his nickname is, because that's what he was on, you know. I'm on the fucking Prozac, mate, not mine. I can't help here, I can't help. And I couldn't understand because he'd never been to jail before, and that's just how it was, you know. You know, there was another kid there called Singh, an Indian fella, big orange turban on. He was fucking mad. He was round a bend. But he was a character. He hit me over the head once with a little metal bowl. Over, so I was just walking over his head. I was like, "Well, what the fuck are you doing, lad?" "I'm very sorry, my friend. I shouldn't have done that." So you keep away from them. Yeah, you know, there was a couple of there was an American called John, and there was an Italian called Aldo. Proper little duo, little sick duo. They were just twisted, manipulating, you know, giving everyone misinformation, causing loads of problems. You know, they caused me a few problems because I'm one for the underdog, and I like kind of supporting people who are struggling, and they were getting bullied by these other foreigners, and I stuck up for them, and you know, come on stalk, and they ended up fighting for them and getting battered. They just fucking turned their back on me and moved on. They didn't even acknowledge it. Our asses. So yeah, you know, you're gonna find it really difficult to trust people out there in the world, and you know, I did as well. You know, especially over there. You know, there was this one guy, this Japanese kid. Honest to God, used to walk like a penguin. You know, and could not keep his mouth shut. Always blowing the tires up for whatever. He ended up getting an iron, got his nose smashed right in. You know, and it just showed me then that there was no escape. Didn't matter whether you were a foreigner or not. You know, if you were messing about in these Thai jails, you know, and you thought you're untouchable because you had, you know, the embassy backing you, and you could get away with a bit. You know, these screws put it on these guys to have him off, and I knew this as a fact, as 100%. So I knew if I was like carrying on doing what I was doing, it was me next. Seen people hang themselves. Well, I haven't seen them actually hang themselves, but I've seen the bodies actually swinging. You know, had to step over dead bodies. You know, people were getting raped left, right and centre. The prison stunk to high heaven of fucking piss and shit. You know, you lived on a staple diet of like sticky rice and fish head soup or chicken feet once a day. It was horrible. You know, and gambling was illegal. Sex and gambling is illegal in Thailand. Crazy, innit? But they're all prostitutes and they all gamble like there's no fucking tomorrow. You couldn't have a game of cards in a Thai prison. You know, there was a consequence, and people used to make them, and they were really good at making cards. You know, so they at night, you know, 9 o'clock, everyone had to keep quiet. They pull out the cards. Cigarettes would be getting gambled. They'd be gambling on anything. You'd die in the fucking HIV ward next day. You know, so you place your bets. That's just how it was. Now, when I got Shanghai to Bangkok, that was a different ball game altogether, and I'll talk about that in another video. But once again, thanks for watching. Crazy characters, eh?